lectures sponsored by the Indian Economic and Social History Review, which now began 8 years ago, I suppose, with Carlo Ginzburg, and where we've tried every year around this time, month of December, to have a visitor often speaking to us, not on the subjects with which we are most familiar, which is to say Indian history, but of subjects which are of perhaps a wider interest, with some intersection oftentimes with Indian history. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the journal, I should just mention to you that this was a journal which was founded now 51 years ago, and which has been running now for the last 51 years out of Delhi. It's an occasion to remember this because, as it happens, we are also marking the passing away of the founder editor of the journal, Professor Tzvetan Chaudhry, who founded this journal when he was still attached to the Delhi School of Economics and the University of Delhi in the early 1960s. Professor Chaudhry would be known to many of you. For those like me who work on an earlier period, he would be known above all for the first two books he wrote, Bengal under Akbar and Jahangir and Young Company in Coromandel. For those of you who work on the colonial period, he would be more known for his later writings, including his work on Europe Reconsidered, as well as his work on the history of emotions and so on. It's a moment of sadness for us to mark his passing a few months ago. Today we invite someone who is well known, I'm sure, to many of you, but there is also a question of the incarnation under which he is well known, because this is a man who has many incarnations. Tzvetan Todorov was born in Sofia, Bulgaria, and after having done his early studies there, moved to Paris in the early 1960s. And as he recounts, amongst other places, in a very interesting memoir that he wrote some years ago, translated into English as Duties and Delights, I believe, The Life of a Go-Between. He talks about how, on arriving in Paris in the early 1960s, he went to the Sorbonne and proposed that he be permitted to do a dissertation in literary theory, and was told promptly that nobody in Paris did literary theory. Of course, this was manifestly false. It was a prejudice of the Sorbonne at that time. But then, of course, it turned out very quickly that certainly there were people who did literary theory in Paris, because Tzvetan Todorov was very quickly one of them. Amongst his early publications, which marked his engagement with the emerging and transforming Parisian literary scene of this time, one could think of something like his the important work and anthology of writings that he published as Théorie de la littérature in 1965, and then a whole series of other works which stemmed from the doctoral thesis which he did with Roland Barthes at the École des Études en Sciences Sociales in 1966. He has spent most of his career at this very peculiar French institution which is called the CNRS, or the Centre National de la Recherche Scientifique, more or less unique institution in the world. And this institution has allowed him actually to have a very flexible career, engaging with very different disciplines, starting from literary theory, very early interest and engagement with Russian formalism, a major role, for instance, in presenting the work of scholars such as Roman Jakobson, but also an engagement with another author who sometimes has been described as a kind of anti-Jakobson, which is Mikhail Bakhtin. So he played a very important role in this first context, which was a literary and semiotic context. But then, as he likes to tell it himself, his work took a turn towards the historical, and this, of course, produced the book which many people know him best by, which is La Conquête de l'Amérique, translated in 1984 as The Conquest of America. And from then on, he has continued to engage with questions of history, of questions of contemporary politics. He has written on a number of varied themes. I'll mention just a few of them. Facing the Extreme, which is his engagement with questions of the Holocaust, In Defense of the Enlightenment.